Hello, welcome to our Mother's Day edition of this podcast. Today we will be sharing personal experiences and talking about common pregnancy myths. We're also going to explain things like induction of labor and fetal monitoring, so that'll be all Bridget. We want to take the time to recognize everyone struggling with infertility. Mamas who have experienced miscarriage, fetal loss, moms who have experienced neonatal and infant loss, those who are acting as mamas, all of you are seen and heard, and your sacrifices are genuine and deserve to be acknowledged on your own time. If anyone wants to talk about this, we encourage you to reach out to a friend, family member, a therapist, or your primary care physician for help. Remember, you are not alone. Okay, so let's dive right in. We're going to go over a lot today, like pregnancy myths. I'll share my oldest son Jack's birth story from my perspective. Also, Bridget was there, so she'll shed some light as she was a third-year medical student who was there during labor and watching it all unfold more objectively. So that'll be good from her perspective. Okay, first let's go into some myths.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 7 and happy Mother's Day for anyone who celebrates. So, we'll talk about some pregnancy myths because people love this. So, first of all, in my line of work, I hear a lot of kooky things. And I say kooky, I don't mean to be offensive, but some things are so silly, like, quote, girls steal your beauty. So if you look a bit tired or you're struggling with acne, which is common in pregnancy in general, just because you're making more oil, honestly, that's why I'm not showing my face very often these days. My face looks like straight trash. Anyway, the myth is that you're having a girl. I would like to say that in our family, though, it's the total opposite. And Marissa and our mother can vouch. Like, that's why I think I'm having a boy. I don't know the gender, but right, Marissa, like our skin in our family is really bad if you're having a boy.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. So my acne while having Jack was so bad, it was worse than any acne I experienced in high school. I honestly, without a sulfur bar, right, Bridget, the one that I told you about, I
Mhm,
really would
mhm.
not go out in public. And even that, like, yes, it made it better, but I still was really self-conscious. And sometimes some pimples would still make it through and they were really uncomfortable.
Yes, like straight up cystic acne. And our mother, so we're the oldest, and then we have a younger brother. Jerry had acne. Apparently, we were too young to really remember when she was pregnant with Michael only. And Jerry has amazing skin. She literally has never had to wear face makeup, even on her wedding day. She was like, I don't need face makeup. My skin tone's even. I'm like, girl, it was like she has such good skin. So she even had acne when she carried Michael. So I'm like, oh, in my head that I'm having a boy now.
Yeah, no, pregnancy acne is no joke. So all out there suffering, we see you. Sorry about that. Try a sulfur bar. It does at least help a little bit.
It does, yeah. Amazon sponsor us. If you honestly, if you go on Amazon and you look up like sulfur bar for acne, it comes up immediately, and it's all pregnant women because it's like clean ingredients you can use safely in pregnancy. But yeah, so you naturally, it has nothing to do with if you're carrying a boy or a girl, really. It's just because you're making more estrogen and progesterone. Progesterone makes you produce more oil, which is why you get hormonal acne leading up to your period, because you get a huge estrogen burst, which causes a progesterone spike. So your face is actually physically more oily. So you get that hormonal acne right along your jawline. You just need to wash your face like way more often. The sulfur bar is good because it actually physically dries you out, which normally is not good, but you need it right now.
Yeah, you need it.
Another myth is about heartburn. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, you need it. I need it. Guys, my face. um, but another myth is about heartburn. So people say your baby has a full head of hair if you suffer with a lot of heartburn. And you'd assume a lot of people would just take this for what it is. It's an old wives' tale and ignore it. But some women are so serious about it. I have been in the delivery room. They give birth to their baby and they go, that's why I had heartburn. And I'm like, oh my God, face, like palm face, like, are you serious? Come on. It's obviously just because of the progesterone, because of pregnancy. So your stomach has delayed gastric emptying, meaning you are physically digesting slower, which is also why you get constipation in pregnancy. And your lower esophageal sphincter, which is normally very tightly closed, so the acid does not come back up on you, gets a little lax because of the progesterone. So it's just a symptom of pregnancy. It has nothing to do with baby's hair. Obviously, your baby is inside your uterus in amniotic fluid, like safely wrapped in a bag of water. Like your baby does not even touch your stomach or your digestive system. There's no way hair could cause gastric acid to come back up and cause heartburn. But it's funny that some people really are convinced by that.
I obviously I can tell you're obviously medically correct, but it is interesting that with Jack, no heartburn, and you know his hairline was atrocious. And Evelyn had a full head of hair, never lost it, still to this day has luxurious locks, and I had really bad heartburn with her.
Oh, there you go. Maybe there is a little bit of truth to it.
No, I'm sure there's not. I'm sure
Um,
obviously you're right, but it's just funny because yeah, I didn't experience heartburn with my bald kid.
he was such a little old man when he was born.
About that hairline.
So cute, though. I would like to say there is no such thing as a pregnancy glow, and I'm sorry, but fuck you people who say there is.
Ooh, ooh. Bridget's feeling
Like,
salty right
it's such a lie. It's such Yeah, I'm very salty right now. Everyone says it because they want you to get pregnant. So I was recently speaking to a colleague, she's another doctor, and she has 2 children of her own, and she was like, "Yeah, it's a myth we all say because at any given time, you know people who are trying for a baby." Like at the time she was like, "Yo, my sister was like trying to have a child." So I just was like, "Yeah, the pregnancy glow, your hair is going to be so shiny, you're going to feel great." And she's like, "If you've ever had a baby, you know that none of this is true." Like you just feel like a more tired version of yourself all the time, and you just look in the mirror like, "When does that glow kick in?" Like it is such a lie. Okay, guys, stop perpetuating this.
Well, I mean, I felt like that after like having the 2 kids and like having the newborn stage. No one tells you that it's a kind of a shit show. I'm sorry. You're tired, and if you're breastfeeding, your nips are bleeding, you're crying. And I had 2 C-sections, so healing from that on top of it, it was literally a nightmare.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyone who knows, if you've had a baby, you absolutely know postpartum is a really tough time to just like be alive. Like you're trying to soak up all the blissful moments of new parenthood while trying to manage your own health and emotions. Your estrogen and your progesterone were just at their highest levels they'll ever be. And then they suddenly come crashing down and they continue to plummet for the next 6 weeks until they're finally back to their basal levels. So you're overcome with emotion. You're trying to sustain the life of a new baby and you're learning on the job. So you're overtired, you're stressed, you're overjoyed. It's just complete overload. Not to mention you are bleeding, lochia. So you're bleeding like a period every day. And you likely have some stitches somewhere, whether C-section, episiotomy, tear, repair. So you're physically healing from an injury and you're in physical pain. It's just mayhem.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I forget somewhere on the internet there was something that said like giving birth and postpartum is as if you were in a bad car accident, but you were sent home anyway and said, "Take care of this new life." It's like a train wreck.
Yeah, you are very lucky if you have a supportive family who live nearby because yeah, I think you need a bit of a coven to like come and help you.
It takes a village for real.
Yes, exactly, which is why my plan, knock on wood, is to deliver back in the States so that I have my mom and my sister near me who can help my husband and I because we're just going to be like blind leading the blind. It's our first baby. We don't know what the heck we're doing.
A true description of your first child during the newborn stage. Blind leading the blind. For exactly.
Absolutely. No, you were so good though. You were like prepared, I remember.
Good. Okay. Then I must have been projecting an image that I wanted to trick you into giving me nieces and nephews too. Congrats, you fell for it.
No, I remember you were just like so prepared. You Googled all these things. Remember, you had like pads in the freezer and like aloe ready to soothe. I just feel like, Mercer, you were really prepared and I was really impressed, even though you ended up not requiring any of those things because you had a C section. But you were really prepared. And I was like, damn, she really knows what she's doing. But yeah, just to go back to it, the pregnancy glow. F all y'all. I don't think it's real and I have fallen a victim. If you're out there and you're like, no, I was absolutely glowing and my hair was shiny and I was like a gorgeous goddess, please let us know. I want to know. I want to know who you are and what you did.
Could be genetics, could be lucky.
I want to know what you did to be so beautiful. Marissa, do you have any other myths you would like to discuss?
Yes. So I have a few. So the one I'm sure a lot of people have heard about if they've been pregnant or trying to conceive, where if you crave salty food, it's a boy, crave sweets, it's a girl. For my case, this was actually accurate. Obviously, I know it's a myth and it's not always the case, but for me, it was accurate.
Really? So you crave
Yeah.
sweets with Evelyn?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And remember with Jack, I was like craving salt so much, I just lived off a pen of vodka.
Did you? Wait, remember you wanted hot chocolate? I mean, not hot chocolate, sorry, chocolate milk with Jack.
Yes, that's the only thing I ever craved, and it was in the morning. If I went past a certain time in the day, I no longer wanted it. But yeah, no, it was really like fries, chips, penne vodka, any other Italian dish that I could get my hands on.
Interesting. I've not had any cravings, not one.
Oh, well, you're lucky. Or maybe I was just using that as an excuse to just gorge myself.
Like I've not wanted like I because I always like ice cream, so that hasn't changed. I'm eating a ton of fruit. That's not changed. I eat like fruit like constantly, like a fruit bat. Vegetables all the times. That's not changed. Yeah, so I've not been like, "Ooh, I really want this one random thing." I've always eaten a lot of pickles, so don't come at me with that, people.
Well, maybe because your diet literally consists of pregnancy cravings, so there's not much more to add to it.
Yeah, maybe. I do love ice cream so much. That has not changed at all.
Mm. I got a few more myths. I got carrying high or low determines your gender. They're saying if you carry high, it's a girl. If you carry low, it's a boy.
Mm,
Obviously, definitely a myth. A lot of it's genetics, and also a lot of it is where are you in your pregnancy, right? Because obviously the baby's gonna
yeah.
drop and gonna be low when you're due.
Exactly. Around 37 weeks, all of a sudden you'll feel quite a significant drop. You'll feel it. You'll be like, oh my God, I have a lot of heaviness really low all of a sudden. So that's because at 37 weeks, your term, baby's fully cooked. So they start to drop a bit into the pelvis, preparing themselves for delivery.
Hmm. Another one is eating spicy food will induce labor. It might give you heartburn, but not labor.
We tell people to do all that stuff though. Like, listen, if your term, you're like 40 weeks and you're like, I want this baby out, we're like, go eat the spicy food, go on walks, definitely, because
Mhm.
gravity will help
Oh,
you.
yes.
Gravity is your best friend,
Mhm.
and have sex. It's called the seduction induction. Do it. What do you have to lose?
Especially if you're at the point where you're like, get this baby out of me right now.
Exactly. We tell people to do it all the time. The only case you shouldn't do it is if your waters have already gone. Please do not have
Mm.
sex once your waters go. It's an infection risk. But anyone else, if you're feeling up for it, try the seduction induction because if you orgasm, so female orgasm is basically your cervix like having a little contraction moment, like a little dilation moment. So that's what it is. It's when it shrinks a bit and touches your uterus. So that's why we think it helps induce labor. So go for it. Try it. Eat dates. People swear by eating a bunch of dates will help ripen your cervix. Raspberry leaf tea, which I've been told tastes like garbage. I'm surprised. Sounds so good.
Oh, I never tried that. I was told that though, but I never tried it.
Yeah. I'm going to try it. But yeah, everyone's like, it tastes terrible.
Oh, dang, that's a letdown because it sounds delicious.
I know. I know it sounds so good. Raspberry leaf tea. I'm like, this sounds like a raspberry iced tea. I can't wait to have it. Nope, not good.
Sounds like something you'd have for like tea time with a scone. Guess not.
No, apparently not. So, oh well.
I'll share one more, which this one is I actually never heard of this until I Googled some of these myths, so please know that this is not true if this has ever scared you. Pregnant women shouldn't raise their arms above their heads. Supposedly, it can cause the umbilical cord to wrap around the baby's neck. This is untrue.
Yeah, definitely untrue. You could carry on with your normal activities. Just don't lift anything too heavy and don't start a new exercise that you like didn't do before pregnancy. But your arms can definitely go above your head.
This sounds like something like centuries ago that men created, so that way you couldn't like pick it against any issues. They're like, wait, let's just tell them that they can't raise their arms and an
Yeah.
uproar.
Also, I would like to say that while your baby is in the uterus and they're safely floating around, they can have the umbilical cord around their neck as long as it's not too tight. They don't need their airway to breathe yet. They're getting all of their oxygenated blood from mom. So they just need the cord to function fine. So as long as it's not so tight that it's not functioning fine during labor, it can go around their neck. Don't worry. Doesn't really matter.
You heard it from the doctor herself.
Yeah. So those are the myths. If anyone has any more myths that they have heard or judgy people have told them when they were pregnant, please let us know. I love hearing funny stories like that. I think it's really interesting to like hear where these things have evolved from. So please let us know if you've heard any more silly myths and things people have said to you when you were pregnant.
Well, you actually just reminded me, Bridget. It's obviously not about pregnancy. It's about when a baby's around like 5 months old. But do you remember you had my son Jack out on a dance floor, and an old woman came up to you and said that you weren't allowed to dance like that with my son?
Oh my god, yes. So I was actually in my 4th year of med school, so he was really young, and we went to a Christmas party. You weren't there. We just took your baby.
I needed sleep.
We were like, "We'll take him and put him in a Santa outfit, cute." And I was on the dance floor doing, like, normal, little shakies with the baby on my hip, and everyone was like, "Oh, he's so cute. Oh, he's so adorable." And this older woman came up to me and was like, You cannot dance with a baby." And I was like, "I think we can." I wasn't, gyrating or throwing him. It was so weird, but I kept dancing, don't worry, I kept boogieing.
No. Obviously, that's why they say kind of keep to your own. Don't be judging people, because if that woman had known her audience, she was speaking to a medical student. So that's not going to land very well. Bridget's highly educated.
I know, I was just like, this is a bit weird. But people do stuff like that all the time. Like, I still do my normal gym routine. I've not changed anything yet because I don't have to yet. But eventually, I will have to make accommodations because the belly will get bigger. But as of now, I haven't really had to change much. But I have heard stories of people at the gym, women at the gym, hosting their own training sessions as well, like personal trainers who happen to be pregnant, and people come up to them and they're like, you can't go to the gym when you're pregnant. It's like, yes, you can. You should keep up the same level of activity you did before pregnancy. You definitely should not start running a marathon if you never did that before pregnancy. Don't do that. But if you
Yeah.
always, ran a mile or two in the morning, lifted weights, you should do that. You just might have to lift less weights, less heavy weights, because you
Yeah.
will be more tired and eventually you just won't be able to maintain it. But as long as you're doing safe activities, you should maintain your level of activity and fitness because ultimately trying to give birth is a marathon. That's what we tell our women all the time. You're burning calories and becoming dehydrated just by going through labor. Like, you don't realize the physical intensity of labor. You need to be quite fit to do it. It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah. Yeah. But I feel like there's a lot of obviously misconceptions out there, which leads to this like fear mongering of information, like telling someone they shouldn't be working out. Like what?
I know. It's like that's the equivalent of saying you shouldn't go out for a walk, which of course we totally encourage women if you're pregnant to go out
Mhm.
for a walk so that you prevent, deep vein thrombosis. You don't get blood clots in your legs. We're like, please walk as much as you can, as long as you're not dehydrating yourself or making yourself sick.
No, absolutely. I'm sure obviously if we thought more on it, we'd have more.
Yeah, when it's so funny, like when you become pregnant, it just feels like everyone has a right to like your body. Like they have a right to be like, oh, you look so big, or oh, you look so small, or they want to like touch your belly, or they want to tell you what you should be doing when you're pregnant or what you shouldn't be doing. And it's just like when I wasn't pregnant, you wouldn't have said this to my face. And now that I am pregnant, all of a sudden you think you have some sort of like stake to claim. I don't know. It's very interesting. And I'm sure a lot of pregnant people would agree maybe they've experienced something similar.
Yeah. No, for sure. I think so too. I don't know if it's that it's just they feel like they're the relationship they have with you, they feel like a part of the journey. Does that make sense?
That does, yeah.
So, also you have to remember your relationship with someone is how you see it, but you never know how the other person sees it, right? So if they feel closer to you than you feel to them, they feel entitled to more information.
Yeah, but what about like strangers who come up to you and are like, oh, you're like so big for this many weeks or something, I don't know.
Yes, I guess I agree, but also I have like a resting bee face. So there was none of, you're definitely more like the sister that's like very smiley and very, you were always social, like a social butterfly, right? So people flock to you because like you're funny, you're social. I was quiet, shy, and with a resting bee face, you would just assume I'm a bee, right? So I didn't have to worry about that because no one was coming up to me. I did not give off that vibe.
I mean, not that anyone says anything offensive to me because it is my first baby and I'm only 22 weeks, so I'm quite small still. It basically just looks like I've had a rough winter and I've stored a couple lbs in the pouch. But it's not like obvious that I'm pregnant.
Right, right. Yeah, no, no. Unfortunately, Bridget's very lucky. It was very obvious that I was pregnant. I swelled up like a hot balloon. Like it was bad.
Oh my god, you were so swollen. Oh, and Jack was born on the 4th of July, so it was just like the hottest summer of your life pregnant.
Honestly, I was wondering when I was gonna pop like a little firework on his birthday, just like let all the water
I
that
know.
I retained out.
Oh my
Ugh.
god, you had so much edema in your legs, I felt so bad. Remember I massaged your legs for like an hour and you're like, "You would never touch me normally. I can't believe how generous you're being."
You were you heard it here first, guys. Bridget actually has empathy. Okay, she will rub your legs for an hour straight with no breaks if you have edema.
I know. I I just felt so bad for you. I was like, "How is this girl walking?"
I really wasn't walking anymore. I was kind of. I don't know if my body was just physically dragging me everywhere. I'm not really sure.
I feel like if I squeezed you, it'd sound like a sponge, like
Possibly, honestly, quite possibly. I think this is the perfect segue to go into Jack's lovely birth story. If you're ready for it, everybody.
Yeah, please tell us, everybody tell us, how was he born?
Okay, so let me just give you a warning, guys. Obviously, I'm not going to be graphic or anything, but it is a birth story, right? So there's things that I cannot leave out if I'm going to be brutally honest with you guys. So if this is not your thing, this is where you tune out until Bridget's segment, okay? Okay, so let's set the scene. Jack is my first child, my son, and his original due date was actually my husband's birthday, June 29th. He was obviously a week and a half, I want to say, whatever July 4th is from June 29th, late. Because he was so late, they were concerned, right? Like Bridget said, I had edema issues. I was really swollen and big, and they were measuring him on the screen, and they were like, this kid looks like he's already 9 pounds. So if we don't induce you now, you're going to end up giving birth to a 10-pound baby, which they were correct, by the way. They were spot on because I gave birth and he was 9 pounds, 1 ounce. So they were not wrong. Um, and so, yeah, he was a huge giant potato. So they bring me in to induce me. So they give me Pitocin.
He was a giant watermelon, he was not a giant potato.
Yeah, a giant watermelon, folks. Like the one that you went at the back in the day at the state
He was
fair,
really
or the
big.
county fair or something. The big ones. Okay, so
Yeah,
they bring me
he's
in.
big.
They give
Mhm.
me Pitocin. It obviously starts labor. It speeds things up. Funny story. My water eventually breaks, but obviously I have no experience in what it feels like or anything. So I didn't say anything. And the nurse came in and goes, "Your water broke. You didn't tell anybody." And I'm like, honestly, I thought I had swamp ass. I had no idea. So I didn't say anything because I was so mortified that I was sweating so badly from my ass. So so, ladies and gentlemen, if you feel that way, your water probably broke. Okay. So I was like, oh, good to know. And then she was like, all right, so, it's gonna, kick up now. It's gonna kick up a notch. I'm like, great, awesome. Let's get this show on the road. So she did let me know if you are at like a 7 and higher in your pain, you need to let us know because if you want the epidural, we need to get you on the schedule because there was so many other people surprisingly on a holiday that were also giving birth at the same time as me. So it's not like I could ask for it and they were going to come right in. Like I actually had to wait because when I even did ask for it, I had to wait in line to get it. So I was like, crap. So I was like, okay, I'll definitely let you know. But I was so afraid that she made it sound like I was going to be waiting for so long in pain that my pain was probably at a 4 or a 5, nothing crazy. Definitely not a 7, like she was asking me to wait till. And I like tapped out. I was like, nope, I don't want to feel anything. Give me the epidural now. So I waited a little bit. I want to say I actually waited 20 to 25 minutes before I got my epidural. So good thing I did ask for it early. And it's funny because if anyone knows me, I hate needles. A little off story to this. I hate needles so badly that one time I had to get blood drawn when I was in high school. I was 16 years old and I bit the nurse. And it wasn't even a crazy needle. It was a butterfly needle that you give to kids. I bit the nurse and I was with my dad. And I remember this. And they said, do not bring her back. Like, we're not taking her blood. Like, she bit the lady, get her out of here. So my mom brings me back this time. My mom goes, I know my daughter bit you. She was with her dad, though. Let me see if she'll be better with me. And they're talking to me like as if I'm like a 5-year-old, right? Like you say that when you have a 5-year-old that bites a nurse. Nope, it's fully 16-year-old girl. So, but of course, everything was smooth, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so that's how much I hate needles, right? But labor was so intensive, especially with Pitocin, which obviously speeds it up and makes it worse, in my opinion. It was so intense that when they were giving me the epidural, I didn't feel a thing. I was like, yes, give me that big ass back needle. I want it all. And that's what they did. So if you hate needles, the chances are when you're in labor, you're gonna love needles. You'll be fine. So I don't know if this is something people want to hear, but it's the truth, right? We're gonna stop hiding the truth from people who want to have babies and get the epidural. I did not know because obviously I did not do research before giving birth, but the epidural stays in your back the whole time. Just so you know, it doesn't. It's not like they give it to you and take it out. No, no, it stays in your back the whole time. Which I was like, what the f? No, thank you. But I had no choice. So a little scary, right? So if it's something that you did not previously know, it's not ideal if you're not a needle person. But pregnancy and giving birth are just kind of so painful that it's like, whatever. I'll take what I can get. Then things started moving along. After the epidural, I was feeling good. I got some sleep. This whole process, by the way, I was in labor for 22 hours and change, almost 23 hours. So this was a very long stretch of time. So I got some sleep, and the next morning, early, things were picking up. They were like, "All right, let's get this show on the road." Because I believe he was born when everything was said and done. Basically, after the C-section, it was like 10:26 a.m. I believe he was delivered. But early in the early hours of the morning before the C-section was the end result, I was pushing, felt like an hour and a half. Would you agree, Bridget? How long was I pushing for?
About an hour and a half. Yeah, you were pushing an hour and a half.
So I was pushing for an hour and a half. And the doctor said, we can see that there is a stool, so poop stool in your sac.
Yeah, so it comes if because your waters have already gone, it comes out with your water. So we can see when baby passes meconium, which is their first poo, because it will come right out of your vagina and it's really obvious. Like everyone knows what it looks like.
Right. Well, in my case, and you would know better, but I remember the doctor saying, "We you can keep pushing, but we just need to monitor the stool, the loose stool, because if it goes missing, that means your baby has swallowed it, and then we have to do a C-section."
So that was when you went for your scan the day of your induction. We could
Mhm.
see that he had passed meconium because it was physically
Mhm.
floating around the amniotic fluid in the sac. And that's
Mhm.
why he said it's okay that it's floating around, but if he
Mhm.
swallows it, it can make him really sick. So we need to
Right.
induce you today. And I remember that day at 1 p.m., you went to the hospital and they induced you.
Yes. Well, that that my little sweet angel child can't make anything easy because while I was pushing for the hour and a half, that's what happened. He lost it. He lost sight of it, and he said, "I am 99.9% sure that your son swallowed it, and that's why I can't see it floating around anymore." And I said, "Oh God, no." And he said, "Listen, we could chance it, but if I'm correct, we need to get him out and on antibiotics." So we honestly, he's like, "I'm recommending C-section right now." And he goes, "But I can't force you. It's your choice." And at that time, after an hour and a half and being told, like, "Oh, you're making progress." Oh, no, wait, his head went back up. Like, I was so defeated hearing that all my hard work was like nothing because my son's head was very large, by the way, still very large, but it was so large that he would like, I would push him up and then it would go all the way back. And I'd be like, "Are you serious? Like, I have to start all over again?" And at that point, I was like, it's an hour and a half. And you're telling me there's a chance that he swallowed something that could hurt him. I was like, I'm tapping out, C-section. So then I got a C-section. But obviously, as true birth stories, nothing can be peachy, perfect, right? There had to be some issues with the C-section. So they get me all ready for C-section. Now, at this point, nobody, including myself, had any idea that epidural that I told you about earlier in my back had fallen out. Not out, like obviously it was still taped to my back, but it wasn't like in where it was supposed to be situated. So when I went for the C-section, like normal C-sections, they want you awake, right? They just want you numb from a certain part down, but they want you awake. No. I did not get to be awake for my first child because since the epidural came out of my back, everything was, I could feel everything, right? And he kept trying to test because he was concerned. He was like, "You can feel this, you can feel this." He kept like the knife or scalpel, whatever you call it. He kept touching my belly. He was like, "You can feel this right now." And when they went to go check and be like, "That's so weird, like we can add more," but it wasn't working. They were like, we're gonna have to knock you out because we got to get this kid out now, and we can't have you feel this. Obviously, that would be barbaric. So for my first C-section, I was completely knocked out. And then I woke up groggy in like the recovery room. And also they had taken my son to the NICU for antibiotics because the doctor ended up being right. He did swallow the stool. And it was an interesting feeling because I would feel bad visiting my son in the NICU because all those babies are really tiny and premature. And then you got to look at my son that's like over 9 pounds and chunky as could be, just like, yep, I'm big and large. Here I am. And I felt
Mhm.
really guilty. I was like, should he be here? Shouldn't there be like another section for like chunky babies that swallow their poop? Like, I feel bad.
I know everyone kept being like, "Who's that big boy Jack?" And we'd be like, "He's ours."
He's large and in charge. Here he is.
Yeah, we're like, "Oh yeah, that's our kid."
Oh my goodness. Like, and I would feel bad because I would be in there visiting and some moms couldn't even pick up their kid, right? Like they were putting their fingers through those little holes in the thing. And then there's my
Mm.
son, just like I'm able to like move him from arm to arm, let my husband and my mom, my sister hold them. Like they're pretty much like juggling him around. And then there's like the other mom's like, "Oh, must be nice."
I know it was really awkward actually. I agree with that because he was okay. Like he just needed the antibiotics, which was the only reason he was admitted. And there were a lot of premature tiny babies who needed a lot of special care and they were in incubators and on oxygen. Oh my god, and we were just in there with like the tubbiest little and we're just like feeding him and oh god, it was really awkward. I was like I feel like we shouldn't be in here.
I honestly, that's how I felt. I was like, I feel like this is just wrong. Like, because you don't know what the mothers are going through, or God forbid anyone loses a child. I was like, what is my chunky child doing in here? That just seems like it's mean.
I know. It was really awkward. But we were only in there for like 2 days, I think. He was right? I think on 2 days and then
Yes.
day 3 you went
Mhm.
home.
Yeah, I went home day 3. So that was obviously, with me telling you it was practically almost 23 hours, I'm sure a lot of details now that I like to fuzz out and pretend did not happen. So what I'd like to tell mothers is I hope I didn't scare you, right? Because not everything goes so left field like mine, but expect the unexpected, right? Because they always tell you with your first baby, "Oh, birth plan, have your birth plan." Yes, 100%. Create a birth plan, conjure up whatever you dream. That's great, but you need to go in with an open mind because things happen and your birth plan might go out the window.
Absolutely. So the kiss of death if you have a laminated birth plan. If you come in with a laminated birth plan, girl, you are going to be an emergency C-section because those people are so rigid and they're like it just never goes their way. It's just for some reason it's just bad luck. We see it all the time. Have a birth plan so that you have an idea of what you want to do, but you need to know that it could not happen that way at all.
Absolutely. But also think further, so what happens if C-section, or go down the different avenues so in your mind you still have a plan because you're like, okay, I thought about this, like I thought, what if this happens, and I already know what decision I want to do.
Exactly. Yeah. Don't be afraid to think about the what ifs. What if I need an instrumental delivery? What if I need a C section? You need to think about that so that when they're like, well, what do you want to do? You kind of have an answer and you've educated yourself so you're not so frightened, because at that moment, you are the only person who's advocating for you and baby.
Hmm.
Baby's not out yet. So it's
Hmm.
actually the role of obstetricians to look after mom, not baby. People don't really know that. My goal is to keep the mother alive. A neonatologist keeps the baby alive. That's not up to me. So you are baby's only advocate while they're still inside you. You're the only one who can give us that insight. So you need to be like, you know what? I've actually done some research on forceps and I'm happy if we go ahead and do this. Thank you. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. 100% agree with Bridget. Super important. But yeah, that was my birth story. Bridget, did you have anything to add? Being, because now Bridget, I forgot to mention, Bridget was in the room. It was my husband, my mom, and my sister. So she saw everything like 4K, right? She was there for it. She experienced it.
Yes. Okay. I have such a different story from Marissa's birth story, but I love that she's so casual about it. Okay. So she was 41 weeks, which is fine. So full term is 40 weeks, which is actually 10 months. People like to lie and say, human gestation is 9 months. Not true. It's 40 weeks, which is 4 times 10. So she was 41 weeks, which is completely fine. Your first pregnancy, we expect you to kind of hold on to them usually because your body's learning what to do. It's never labored before. So every second it's learning how to dilate, how to contract. So that's fine. So 41 weeks, you go for scans more often to make sure baby's still moving and growing appropriately and making sure everything's okay, enough fluid around baby. Because once you go post 40 weeks, there's a chance that fluid won't be adequate anymore. The placenta starts to give up. Maybe baby's growth will tail. So everything was fine with Jack. And just like Marissa said, they were like, oh, we can physically see the meconium on the ultrasound. That's fine. We expect that. So babies pass their first stool in the womb if they're post-states or if they're distressed. So in this case, baby was absolutely not in distress, just pooed. And we was like, fine. So there was no concerns. We are like, we're just going to induce you because, your first baby is really big and that can be a risk for a lot of things, which I'll discuss later in when I talk about induction of labor. So Marissa was like, yep, I'm fine with that. Goes for an induction. Honestly, for a first time mom, which we call a primate, but primate gravida, she did amazing for induction, like was so quick with it. By the time it was ready for her to push, I knew she had a non-working epidural because she was saying she was in pain. That's fine. It happens. It's actually it's not common, but like it's not uncommon, like at least one woman a shift might have like a non-working. It just depends. So obviously like the catheter part, the cannula part of it, like the rubber tubing we keep in, it just slipped a little bit from her epidural space. Fine. It wasn't working. So after about an hour and a half of pushing, I was looking at the CTG. So CTG is the band they put around you where you can listen to baby's heartbeat. And we do this when you're in labor. For very low risk women, you don't have to do continuous monitoring. That's absolutely fine. But for Marissa, she was induced. So when you are induced, you're on a lot of hormone drips like Pitocin. So we have to do continuous fetal monitoring. So she was on the CTG. I'm looking at it. I was only a third year medical student, but I had already done my labor and delivery round. So I was like, that's a bad CTG. Baby was looking okay, but the heart rate was super high. So then they did Marissa's temperature and they're like, oh, you know what? Marissa has a bit of a fever. We think we're a bit worried. So she's pushing, she's pushing, she's pushing. The heart rate at this point, his heart rate was about 180 to 200 with accelerations. So I'm like, that's a sign that baby's sick. I know that. It's obvious. Every medical student can tell you that. Now, the obstetrician was so calm and experienced that he kind of didn't let on how serious it could be. He was really calm and was just like, I think we need to go for a C-section. And but I could see it in his eyes. He's like, this is an emergency C-section. Like, we need to go now. So Marissa had a non-working epidural. So they like to do an epidural top-up. Couldn't do it in Marissa. And it was so urgent, a true category 1, like crash cesarean section, that they had to put her to sleep there, because normally they would go, oh, let's try a spinal. No, there was no time to try spinal anesthetic. Like they were like, we need to get her asleep and down so we could get this baby out as soon as possible. And that's what they did, because they were absolutely right. The CTG was correct. The heart rate was going so high because baby was infected. And that's also why Marissa spiked a fever. So it was all ended up being fine. Obviously, Marissa got a couple doses of antibiotics, baby got some antibiotics, and it all ended up being really, really fortunate for both of them. And we're so happy. But like when Marissa tells her birth story, she's like, oh yeah, I just ended up with a C-section. Like I have never seen a truer crash cesarean than my sisters. Like in all honesty, like they were like, we need to get this baby out now. And Marissa does not understand like the gravity of the situation. So I love when she tells the story, because from my point of view, I was like, yeah, we're wheeling her to like the OR now.
Well, I mean, like I said, I was a little loopy, and on it, I was so tired too, because to go through the whole night, yes, like the epidural made it a little comfy, but not much. And they gave me that like peanut shaped thing they stick between your legs to open up the cervix more, because apparently I was
Yeah.
slowly opening, like they wanted to see it happen faster. So I'm sorry, but I could not get any sleep. Now I've heard mothers say that it's the most comfortable thing. They slept great with it, no issues. For me, it just didn't. I don't know if it's just like the crevices of my thighs. I don't know. I did not get much sleep. So I was like loopy as hell. Oh my goodness.
No, of course. Like, especially if you're not a medical person, you don't know. You can only take what they're saying at face value. But like from someone objectively watching, I was like, oh boy, this is pretty serious. We're definitely going for an emergency C-section. But it ended up being fine. And then your second birth story was much more chill because you went for an elective section and you knew what to expect and there were no surprises.
So that one though went sideways the opposite way. So because obviously I scheduled that C-section, I was like, I'm never going through that again. I make very big babies. She was a chunky one. I was like, I want this easy peasy in and out. And it was great. Even, waking up from surgery, staying in the hospital, fine. But she surprised me came time to coming home, because this is something I did not experience with Jack. I had baby blues in the first 2 weeks, baby blues. Obviously, I had it monitored so it didn't turn into full postpartum. Because let me clarify, baby blues is a little different than postpartum. It can lead to postpartum, which is why you need to monitor it. But with all the hormones and everything after giving birth, it is normal to experience a little bit of baby blues and should go away if it doesn't turn into postpartum, right? So monitor it by a professional. It is important. Obviously, I am a professional in that field, so I was monitoring it myself along with a woman that I used to work for, because I just, to hold myself accountable, and I needed an outside opinion that was also in the field and knew what she was doing. So thank you for that. And the first 2 weeks, I couldn't like stop crying, honestly. But it was weird because it was like I don't feel sad or depressed per se, but something was wrong is the best way I could say it. Because I would break out in tears over something that wasn't making sense. And I remember my husband John turning to me and being like, "Are you okay? Like, I don't know what's wrong. Did I do something? Do you want me to help you with something? Was I not being helpful enough?" Which, by the way, he's an angel. He does too much, so never an issue with him. And I just kept being like, "I'm crying, but I don't know why I'm crying." And he was like, "Well, are you hungry? Are you tired? Do you want me to let you go lay down?" And I'm like, "No. Like, I can't explain it. I just know this has got to be baby blues because I'm literally crying for no reason at random times. Just like super emotional."
Yes, yeah. So baby blues, up to 80% of women experience it actually. And as long as it does, it should resolve by 2 weeks. And if
Mhm.
it doesn't, if it progresses to more of a chronic depression, then yeah, we're looking at postpartum depression, which can be more dangerous because obviously it can lead to like postpartum psychosis. But yeah, people don't talk about baby blues enough, especially considering 80% of women experience it. They just think it's like a normal reaction. But you shouldn't feel helpless and weepy all the time. That's not normal. And it's good that you recognize that it was not normal.
Mhm. Absolutely. I remember feeling so not in touch with my body. Does that make sense? Because I couldn't figure out why I was crying, because I didn't have the feeling of sadness, which I do know is different. Some women do. But for me, I was crying, but there was no reason. Like there was no feeling attached to it. So I was like, what is going
Mm,
on? Why? Like I would be looking at my sweet baby.
yeah.
Evelyn is her name. I'd be looking at her in such bliss, like, "Oh my god, a daughter, my first daughter," and then break out crying. And I'm like, what? But like uncontrollably sobbing, not like little tears, cute tears, no, uncontrollably sobbing. And I couldn't get myself to stop until it like stopped on its own. I was like, what is going on? It did
I
not
wasn't
take the
there
full
for
thing.
that one.
Yeah, no, were you already in England? You were already in England, right?
Yeah, yeah, I was. So I wasn't there to well, obviously, that's the difference. The touch of Bridget.
The touch of Bridget. Oh, here. See, guys, it takes a village. You need your touch of Bridget. Find your Bridget and keep her.
Yeah.
But other than that, hers was pretty great. Even her pregnancy, for me, the girl pregnancy was way easier on my body. Um, just had heartburn, but whatever. I got over it. But yeah, other than that, that was a lot better in my experience once I got past the baby blues.
Mm. Yeah. Well, shoot. Second
You get
one's
scared.
easier, huh? Hmm.
Well, I thought, okay, I cannot generalize. Every woman is different, but I don't know if it's because I had the C-section already planned. It all went according to plan for once, and also because I'm now what they call a veteran mom, right? Like once you're not on your first baby, you're a veteran mom. So you know what to expect, you know what could go wrong. You're like, "Hey, also, when you have a toddler, because my kids are close in age, they're 2 years apart. So when you have a toddler at home, you think of giving birth and going to the hospital as a vacation, and I know that's sad. I know this, guys, but for me, I was like, "Wait, I get to go lie down. Like, I'm gonna be, numb from like here down, and then I'm gonna go lie up in a bed because I can't get up. My stitches might break, and my husband's gonna bring food to my mouth. Like, this is amazing. This is a vacation. Thank you, insurance.
People say that all the time if they come in to give birth, because obviously, like, your children aren't there when you're like, it's just you and your partner or whoever you want to be there with you. And
Yeah,
they're like, "Oh no, I have 3 kids at home. Like, I don't want to go back."
I feel them so much. And if I don't want one, but if I ever do have a third, I would still feel that way. I'd be like, yes, a vacation.
Yeah, it's a little bit, it's like, and it's, I get it. Like, you love your kids and everything, but it is chaos. Once you have children, your life goes from just like normal adulthood behavior to complete chaos, and you can't predict it. So you're just like, "Oh, I just want to be surrounded by adults again."
Yes. And what I wasn't really prepared for was the fact that with Jack and my C-section, I was able to do things slowly to make sure I was not affecting or irritating my scar, right? From the C-section. Well, it wasn't even a scar.
Mm.
It was a wound at that point, right? Um and with Evelyn, and you have a toddler who is a boy, and he was in the climbing time, and running around and doing things that he was getting hurt and all that. I felt like I couldn't go slow because I had to chase the toddler around. Granted, I had my husband to help me, and he was a great help. But I will say it's night and day from like being able to just like take your time with a newborn. And even though the newborn stage is rough, like it's just you're doing it on you don't have to chase a toddler too. Like I feel like the toddler adds a whole nother level.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. You're not actually taking time to like recover. Like, when it's your first baby, and especially because mom and I were there with like, we were over your house literally every day. Like, you probably preferred we didn't help as much, but like, you were able to just chill on the couch, watch our shows. It was more just like we were all helping with Jack. But with your second one, everyone's like, "Yeah, you got this, right?" And like, you're like, do I?" Like,
No, we're in fact, I feel like mothers need more help because now there's more kids. You help your family, everybody. Just because they're veteran moms doesn't mean anything. If anything, they need more help.
yeah, definitely. I completely agree with you, because you're looking after a new newborn. Not all newborns are the same. You're learning new habits with this one.
Right.
And you're also trying to like wrangle a toddler.
Oh gosh. I remember for John, his learning curve. So when we had the boy, he could like if he was half asleep, right, changing Jack, it didn't matter how sloppy he was when it came to wiping the poopy diaper because obviously Jack is a boy, so he has a male part. But with a girl, you have to wipe from front to back, or you could give the baby an infection in her female part, right? So John was like, "Oh, this is just so stressful because I'm so tired. It's so dark and I can't see, and I have to make sure I wipe a certain way." He's like, "I didn't have to worry about this with Jack."
Aw, poor John.
He eventually got the hang of it, guys. He's just
Oh
learning
God.
everything. He's very tired.
Yeah, well, my husband's never even changed a diaper in his life, which I can't. I'm like, how is that possible? So he's like,
Mhm.
"I really need to learn." I'm like, "You better learn."
Well, you know what? We're still potty training Evelyn, but she's still in diapers sometimes. So when you guys come in August, you want to change Evelyn?
Yeah, you should. You know what's funny though is that he'll be trying on a very active mobile toddler.
The best
So he'll be
practice.
like, "This is really hard." Yeah.
You're
I'm
like,
like,
"Dog
"No. It's much easier on a newborn. They just sit there."
we're gonna accidentally train him to first wrestle and pin down, and then your newborn's gonna be like, "Ow, what are you doing?"
I know. We'll be like, "Yeah, it's really that hard." He'll be, oh my god, that will absolutely traumatize him. But yeah, let's do it.
But though, if we train him with the harder age, right, then having a newborn, he's gonna feel like so skilled. He's gonna be so confident,
I know. I think this is a good idea. I think you're onto something. That's
right?
the
This is a good
second we
idea.
land, that's what we're doing.
Ed, if you hear this, this is your only chance to run, buddy, because as soon as you land,
Save a poopy one. Let's go.
I shall. God, hers are like adult poops now, so God bless his heart.
Oh god.
Oh my God.
Right, let's talk about induction of labor.
Yes.
Yes. So, induction of labor is performed for a
Go for it.
lot of reasons. And I just like to explain this because it's something I explain like all the time in my job. People have heard the term induction of labor, but they have no idea what it actually means. And for some reason, it's not explained really well. So, um, So it's performed for a lot of reasons. The most common being if you have hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, like pregnancy-induced hypertension or preeclampsia, if you have gestational diabetes, if you have a prolonged pregnancy, so like if you go beyond 40 weeks, or any concerns for maternal well-being. So a lot of people, it's maternal request in a term baby, so beyond 37 weeks, because mental health, they're just not coping anymore, and maternal age. So prolonged pregnancy, we mean when your pregnancy goes beyond the 40 weeks, so when you're in weeks 41 to 42. So 40 weeks is full term, but you are full term technically by 37 weeks as well. So just beyond 9 months. So from 37 weeks, baby is fully cooked and you can go into labor whenever you want. So if you carry beyond 40 weeks, it can be perfectly safe for you and your baby, but there is an increased risk of the placenta kind of expiring and not feeding baby as well anymore. So we may need to induce you if baby shows signs of slowing growth. So baby's growth should never stop. You should get bigger and bigger and bigger, or reduced fetal movement. So if baby's not moving as much. In the case of gestational diabetes, we're more concerned about baby being huge. So if your sugars are well controlled and baby's growth is normal, you can carry until 40 weeks and then have an induction. However, if your sugars are poorly controlled and baby is already showing as large for gestational age, we call it LGA. We worry about a lot of things. So one thing is anal sphincter injuries from tears, those third and fourth degree tears in mom. You can tear all the way to your anal sphincter, and that can cause long-term complications. We're also worried about shoulder dystocia. So when baby's head is delivered, but the shoulders don't come out, that's an emergency. Fetal asphyxia, which could be from shoulder dystocia, and brachial plexus injuries. So your brachial plexus, all humans have it. It's a clump of nerves that are like basically right beyond your armpit, like lower down in your arm, kind of where the biceps are a little bit. So it's a huge bundle of nerves that control motion and sensation from neck all the way to the fingertips. So those can become quite injured in a big baby who gets stuck. And if the injury is permanent, they might lose full function of that arm that was affected. So we try to prevent all of that. So how do we induce? So people say that induction is more painful than natural labor. It's not necessarily true. It's just that the medications we give are slow acting and mimic natural labor. So the difference is the pace, really. So for some women, rather than the glacial pace of contractions eventually ramping up to painful, so they're getting used to it over time, they become apparent due to the medications quite quickly instead. So there's not that natural progression of it. If we put you on the Pitocin, which is oxytocin, if we put you on that drip, you might feel the contractions go from 0 to 60 and you don't have time to adapt. That's all. It's not more painful than they would have been. It's just that you haven't had that, day to kind of cope with it. We use tablets and gels called prostaglandins to ripen your cervix. That means to soften it and dilate it. So we give those one at a time. And then approximately 6 hours later, you have an internal exam to feel if you are softening and dilating. And we can repeat this process 3 or 4 times. We also have longer acting prostaglandins that stay in the vagina for 12 to 24 hours, depending on the name brand you're using. If you've had a C-section in the past and you're trying for a VBAC, so a VBAC is a vaginal birth after cesarean. So you're trying for that, we offer a cervical ripening balloon. So a CRB for short. It looks like a urinary catheter, but it has a larger balloon attached. So this helps physically expand the cervix, and we fill the balloon with water. We do an exam, we do through the vagina, and we feel for your cervix, and we put the catheter all the way up into the cervix and fill it up with water, and it stays there. So that can stay for 12 to 18 hours. We prefer these in women with previous cesarean sections because in C-sections, we worry about the prostaglandins inducing strong contractions that can cause scar tenderness. So scar tenderness is when you're having contractions or you're in early labor and you feel pain where your incision is from your previous C-section. We worry about wound dehiscence. So that's when the wound starts to separate, or complete scar rupture, which can lead to fetal death. So if your entire uterus opens up, baby can't survive that way. They need to be in a closed uterus. So that is, again, an emergency that can lead to fetal death. And we're really concerned about that. So after you're dilated enough, you may continue on your own into labor as you wish, or you might need amniotomy. So that is when we break your waters, which doesn't hurt. It's just a gush of fluid. And we can also give you that oxytocin drip. So, Pitocin is a manufactured version that is the exact same, basically, as the naturally derived oxytocin in your body. And that is responsible for uterine contractions. So, some people require all of these things in order to get into established labor. Some people don't. Some people have had babies before. You give them one prostaglandin and they're good to go. Their body knows what to do. And it's quite simple. So that is what we mean by induction of labor. We're basically just mimicking natural early labor, getting you to that point, and then hopefully you continue into established labor on your own. So that is it. And it can take days. It can be a really slow process. Like Merce explained, she was in the hospital for 22 hours at the end of it. So people, don't think, oh, I'm getting induced today. I'm going to have my baby today. It's definitely not true, especially if it's your first baby. It's going to be as slow and long and painful as natural early labor. You're just in a hospital, so you're slightly more aware of it. Whereas if you were awaiting events to happen on their own, you might be in early labor at home. So you're not really thinking about the time passing as much. That's the main difference, I would say. Huge psychological impact. But that is induction of labor. And if anybody has any questions or concerns, please let us know. I would love to hear from you guys and share your own experiences about inductions.
Yes. That was great. I feel like if anybody needed to learn more about that, they got all that info.
Yeah, sorry, is a bit of a chunky one at the end there. A lot of knowledge crammed in.
That's okay. But otherwise, we hope that you have a fabulous Mother's Day, and obviously, we honor mothers who are in the trenches, but also who are bereaved, who are even hoping for a baby and still haven't had one. All types of mothers, right? Everyone is a mother, and they're all going through their own experiences, and we celebrate all of you, every single one of you. And we hope that you have a good Mother's Day and a nice, relaxing weekend. And we will see you again next week.
Yes, thank you so much for tuning in, guys.
So please like, subscribe, follow Psychotic PY Podcast. And if you'd like, please subscribe to us on YouTube at Psychotic PY Podcast. Share this podcast with friends and family if you like it. And if you want to reach out and suggest any topics, we are all ears.
Exactly. We'd love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Take care.
Bye.